My name is Dave, and I just did a little video telling you about this old bass I have, and I wanted to do another video and talk about the pickup selection I have in this bass, which is a P bass and a jazz bass pickup. And I want to tell you why I think it's the most versatile pickup you could have. If you're a bass player who plays in a lot of different situations, you play different types of music, I think this is by far the most versatile pickup selection that you could have in a bass. I'm not saying that other pickup selections aren't great. They are. But I prefer this, and I'm going to tell you why I do that. So first off is we have just the P bass pickup, and we'll go through those sounds. So in this bass, I can have this pickup wired in parallel or in series. And series is the stock P bass configuration. That's what I have it in now. So right now with the tone all the way up, the volume up, classic P bass sound. Now you notice I just played some Rush. Yeah, that first Rush album was recorded with a P bass too. So when you've got the thing in the stock P bass configuration, everybody knows what that sound is. You know. Get that? You know, Steve Harris. Lots of guys played P basses. Just there's a ton of examples out there, and it's a great sound that on its own actually soloed. It's really not that great of a sound soloed. It's my least favorite sound to practice with because it's just got this like in-your-face mid-range sound that is way too loud sometimes. But in the midst of a band, it's like the best bass sound ever. It just cuts through a band awesome. And sometimes, if you've been playing a long time, you'll know this, that sometimes the sound that you have when you're practicing and you think sounds great doesn't sound good with a band because it just doesn't cut through the mix. That super clean hi-fi bass sound doesn't cut through a mix, but this gnarly sound and P bass sound, buddy, that cuts through a mix. So you can have that sound, and you can roll the tone back on this sound. Get that, you know, Motown. You can get that Motown type of sound if you roll the tone back. Probably if I had flat wounds on here to really nail that sound. Second sound you can get is with both pickups on, with this pickup configuration. Actually, I skipped one. We'll go back to the P bass. Now I could switch this P bass into parallel mode, which makes it operate like a single coil. Now, a lot of people don't like this sound. I'm going to turn my bass amp up a little bit. Fender had a bass that had a switch, I think it was called the S1 switch, that basically did this. It took this P bass pickup and it turned it into a single coil. And a lot of people said, oh, well, that sounds not very usable. Well, actually, it's really usable, especially in settings where you may be playing with acoustic instruments. And the other thing is, a lot of times, since the volume is quieter when you have this set as a series pickup, a lot of people perceive that it doesn't sound as good as the series wiring. But actually, you know, if you don't let the volume difference confuse you, you turn your amp up a little bit when you switch into that setting, you'll find that that sound is actually very usable. It's got a very jazz bass sound to it. And if you're recording or playing with a band that has a lot of acoustic instruments, it actually sits in a mix a lot of times a lot better than that P bass sound. Sometimes when certain types of music, that P bass sound can just be a little too in your face. You can roll the tone back and make it work, but if you want to leave the tone up, it's just a little too clanky or too woody sometimes. So if you have that series parallel switch, you can get also, you can make the P bass a little more slap friendly versus this. So it is a little bit better sound if you're going to do some slap and pop, and all you've got is a P bass, which really a lot of times that's all you need anyway. But if you've got that switch, it gives you another tone option. With this bass, since I've got the jazz bass pickup, I can actually get a little bit even better sound if I leave this in series, or not in series, in parallel, so it's like a single coil, and I turn this on. Now I can get a really close jazz bass sound. It's got that kind of burpy sound that a jazz bass has. So it's got that kind of sound. So that's going to be useful in a lot of things, especially if you're slapping, you know. And I don't really do a lot of slapping. It went out of style, about 20 years ago, so, you know, I haven't really done much of it since then. But if you want to do that sort of stuff, there you go, that's a good setting. If you turn this back into a humbucker, so now it's both pickups on, and this is in series, so it's acting like a humbucker again, you can get kind of a Stingray sound. I've always thought. In fact, I recorded an album one time, and I used a Stingray on half of it, and this on the other half with this setting, and I listen to it now, and I can't tell the difference between the two basses. They sound so similar. Now, this bass has 10-year-old strings on it, which is my preference nowadays. But used to, I would always change the strings like once a week. And so that's both pickups on, and that's in the P bass, the standard P bass series wiring. It's got that Stingray sound that we all recognize when we listen to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. That's a wrong key. So it's got that Stingray sound. Then, lastly, it's got the jazz bass pickup on its own. Now, I don't really love this sound with the tone all the way up. And the only bass player I can think of that used that kind of tone was the guy, I'm trying to think of what his name was. He was a bass player for Nuclear Assault. I think it was Dan Lilker or something like that. But one of their albums, he had this really gnarly bass tone. And I really liked that, but typically this isn't a sound I use a whole lot. But if you take your tone control and roll that all the way down, now we got a tone that's a classic tone. And the guy we think of whenever we hear this tone is Jaco, where, you know, we hear that Jaco tone, you know. I don't know a whole lot of Jaco lines. But it's got that kind of tone, and that's actually can be a really useful tone, especially if you were a jazz player. You'd use that all the time. So those are the basic tones I think you can get from this type of pickup configuration, which mimic a lot of different basses, and there's a lot of like classic bass sounds in this pickup configuration. And that's why I think, especially if you're a musician who plays a lot of different kinds of music, plays a lot of different gigs, this is one thing that can do pretty much everything. One guy I've heard say, you know, if you can't do it with a P bass, you just can't do it. Well, this is a P bass plus a little bit extra. I definitely like this better than just a stock jazz. I did own a, what was that, like a 62 Jazz reissue at one time. Man, it sounded great. But it really had that, you know, it really had two sounds that you used all the time. typically on a jazz, when I played the jazz bass, I never really used the neck pickup on its own. Usually it was either both pickups or this pickup on its own. But I think this is the most versatile setup you can have, and I also like a passive bass. And I could tell you, as somebody who was a working player, and what I mean by that is, I played 100 times a year, and I did that for at least 10 years straight. But as a working bass player, when I used to play all the time, I didn't like active basses, and I've had a couple of them. The Stingray wasn't so bad. The batteries lasted forever in that. But some of the other active basses I had, the batteries really wouldn't last that long. And there's nothing more frustrating is at 12:30 at night when you're the headlining band, you're playing your slot, and your bass starts to die because the batteries are bad. And if you're gigging all the time, this becomes more of a problem. So I prefer passive basses for that reason. There's less to go wrong. So that's just my little spiel on that. There's nothing wrong with active basses. They sound great. But I like a passive bass because it's just dead reliable. There's nothing to go wrong with it. So feel free to leave any comments you have below. Thanks.